The order of the June 10th, 2014 special meeting work session of the Riverton City Council to order at 7 o'clock. Would Councilman Canan say the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would the city clerk please conduct a roll call?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilman Richgard.
Here.
Councilman Martin Canan.
Here.
Councilman Jonathan Fabian.
Here.
Councilman Kyle Larson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mary Ellen Christensen.
Present. At this time, Chair would entertain a motion to excuse Councilmember Todd Smith and Mayor Ron Warpness for a few more minutes.
Your
At
Honor,
tonight's meeting.
I'd make the motion to excuse Councilman Smith and the mayor for a few more minutes.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye,
Aye.
Aye.
and no is nay. Motion passes. I would declare a quorum is present. At this time, I'd entertain a motion for the council or the agenda approval.
Your Honor, I would move to approve the agenda at this time.
Seconded.
Passes. Let's see, item number,
We have to vote on it.
oh, I apologize, sorry.
Ask for those.
Oh, okay. All those in favor say aye, all opposed say no.
Aye.
Aye.
And that passes. The public hearing, item 6, is public hearing in consideration of resolution number 1301 approval of the fiscal year 14-15 budget. City Administrator's report.
Yes, Your Honor. Pursuant to the direction of the City Council and as required by state law, staff has prepared a fiscal budget that represents a balanced approach for operating the City of Riverton and providing services to the citizens of Riverton for fiscal year 15. Budget work sessions and hearings have been held, publications of the budget advertised, with the final phase of the budget processing encompassing the passage of Resolution 1301. Just to give a little background, staff is proud to say that we have a balanced budget. The city's total budget, including capital, is $21,957,752. A lot of time and effort has gone into preparing the budget. This year has been harder financially than it has been in the past 2 years. Most of the revenue projections have been right on, except for a few, including our largest general fund revenue, sales tax. Sales tax has been running about 10% short all year from what we budgeted. As a result of this, the budget is tight this year. We have financial reserves in fiscal year 2014 at 18.5% per council policy. In the enterprise funds, revenues exceed expenses in all funds, with exception of the airport, which is subsidized by the general fund. On the revenue side, the general fund's revenues is split this year with some increases and some decreases. Estimated revenue is $8,036,979. We're projecting slight increases in property taxes, motor vehicle, charter cable, source gas, Rocky Mountain Power, franchise fees, and encroachment and building fees. We're seeing decreases in sales tax, supplemental funding, and court fines. Sales and use tax revenues make up about 32% of the general fund. We're estimating a decrease of $240,400 in sales tax revenues based on last year's amount. Grants account for 27% of the city's entire budget. Under the expenses, included in this budget is $379,908 allocated to 9 agency line items within the city budget, which is down $21,112 from $401,020. Because of the decrease in revenues, we have reduced some of the contract for services. All of the funding for contract services request is taken out of supplemental funding from the state of Wyoming. The City of Riverton is a service-based organization, and it should not be surprised that our largest single category of expenses to provide services to the citizens is personnel. This year, we're not able to make it work for any cost of living adjustments or stipends. Health insurance costs are increasing by 6%, which both the city and the employee will absorb these costs based on their current percentages. The portion the employee pays for the employee-only plan will increase from 2% to 10%, making it consistent with our other coverages. The Wyoming retirement system has another increase this year of a 0.75% increase, which will be passed on to the employees. The proposed capital plan for this fiscal year has a lot of projects that are multi-year. This year we're in a holding pattern of finishing up the current projects and gives us time to recuperate. Many of the projects that were bid out in our past budget were higher than expected. A few new ones that were added are the municipal court software, which that's a software program we have for a court that is not supported anymore. So the company that actually provides it doesn't even support it anymore. So if we have issues, that you can't even call them up and get support. So that needs to be upgraded. Leak detection survey performed on all of our water lines in town. That'll be very helpful because it looks like in a lot of ways our percentages are a lot higher than the standard. And so this will be helpful in finding those leaks. And then we have a miscellaneous water improvements line item in the capital, and that is for fixing those leaks when they're found. Also a wastewater treatment plant transfer switch, and then obviously the big runway project at the airport. So since our budget work session that we had on May 27th, there are a few changes that made, and I just wanted you to be aware of those. The discussion at the budget work session was trying to come up with some money to bump up a few of the organizations that provided essential services for the city. The consensus of the council was to increase Volunteers of America, Our Recreation, Good Samaritan, Children's Advocacy Project, and the Volunteers Firemen. The other four would be left at the 15% reduction. Staff accomplished this increase by cutting some more in the budget. Council contingency was taken out. The 422 Main Street, $1,000 was taken out. The Gator for the Parks Department was removed from the capital project list. The bucket truck was reduced to $25,000, and court software program was reduced to $18,000. And we had some savings in our salary line items because of personnel changes. There was another change in the total budget, including capital, if you notice that. It was increased from $20,199,698 to $21,957,752. That's not that we added a whole bunch of new things. It's when we went to do our final review, we had the revenues in for a lot of these, particularly the 1% fund, which is like $1.4 million, and that was not included in there. But there was also the 911 fund and the debt service, so it's not a real increase. So the recommendation from staff is to adopt Resolution 1301, fiscal year proposed budget.
Thank you, Stephen. The chair would entertain a motion for the public hearing.
Your Honor, I would move to open public hearing regarding resolution number 1301 at this time.
Second.
It's passed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I now declare the public hearing open. The hearing will be conducted in accordance with state statutes and other applicable laws. I would ask that those individuals wishing to address the council to approach the podium and identify themselves for the record. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment?
Seeing none, Your Honor, I'd move to close public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It is passed. The chair would entertain a motion to sorry.
To approve
I
resolution.
now declare the public meeting closed. Courtney, I do have a question here on this. Next, we'll open the budget meeting, just close the public.
Yes, so next you'll just need a motion to adopt the resolution.
Resolution, okay, that was, it's out of order here, so. The chair would entertain a motion for the consideration of resolution number 1301, approval of the fiscal year 14-15 budget.
Your Honor, I'd make a motion to approve the budget for the 14-15 year.
And I'll second.
All those in favor say aye, all opposed, no.
Aye. Aye.
Motion passes. Number 7, ordinance number 14007, second reading, zoning for the Apodaca First Edition, Community Development Director's Report. Sorry about that, Sam. I'm reading from the script. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Your Honor. This is second reading of zoning designation for the Apodaca First Edition. And council did approve this on second reading, or on first reading at the last council meeting on June 3rd. And so now it's up for second reading at this time.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion for ordinance number 14-007, second reading.
Your Honor, I would move to approve ordinance 14-007 on second reading.
Seconded.
All those in favor say aye. All opposed, say nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Passes. Item number 8 is the Riverton Regional Airport Grant Agreement, Airport Improvement Project 38, reimbursable agreement for localizer. City.
Your Honor, we need to read that ordinance by title only.
By title.
Oh.
Courtney, could you read that by title?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Proposed ordinance number 14-007 on second reading, an ordinance amending the zoning district map of the city of Riverton, Wyoming, designating the zone of lots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Apodaca First Edition, in addition to the city of Riverton, Fremont County, to be residential district.
Thank you.
Do we need to revote?
Vote. Vote again.
Are we supposed to revote?
Not necessarily, it just says that it has to be read by title only at each meeting.
Let's just
So,
for
okay,
for
you may.
safety's sake, do it.
Okay.
The practice will do it. The chair would entertain a motion for ordinance number 14-007, second reading. Apodaca
I think we
First.
can just call the vote because we have the motion and the second, so.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Now, item number 8. Riverton Regional Airport Grant Agreement, Airport Improvement Project number 38, reimbursable agreement for localizer. City Administrator's Report.
Yes, Your Honor. The purpose of this agreement is between the FAA and Riverton, is for an FAA to assess the impacts of runway 10, runway end identification lights, and runway 28 localizer, the LOC, at the Riverton Regional Airport due to FAA requirements to lower the runway by 15 feet. They have to lower this localizer. And this is an interesting grant that we have to apply for. Because the localizer is actually owned and maintained by the FAA, but they require that the city pays for it up front, and then we get a grant from the federal government to be reimbursed to pay for it. So it's a lot of do for nothing, I guess you'd say. And so this grant agreement is basically, and we do have a portion of it. There's $2,900 in there and we've budgeted for that for the Riverton share. The federal is $109 and the state is $4,394. But the total amount for this is $117,182.85. But it really is almost like a pass-through in the fact of it's not even ours, but we have to pay for it up front, and then they install it, and then we get reimbursed from the grant for most of that project. And so the staff recommends that we approve this.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion for Riverton Regional Airport Grant Agreement, AIP 38 reimbursable agreement for localizer.
Your Honor, I would move to approve the FAA grant for AIP 38, Runway 28 LOC, and Runway 10 REIL.
Second?
Is there any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, motion passes. This time we will convene into work session at 7:17 and entertain a motion to adjourn into a special meeting council work session.
Your Honor, I would move to adjourn from the special meeting into a council work session.
Second.
The motion, or all those in favor say aye. All opposed say no.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. This meeting of the Riverton City Council stands adjourned at 7:16.
It's gotta be
Okay,
right.
Your Honor, we've got Mylan Vinich. Am I saying your last name right? He's from our airport, and he's going to give us a little insight on the airport, our regional airport, and some of the things that the airport operators do up there. And I think it'd be enlightening to all of us to understand exactly what they do. It's a lot more than just the airline service, but they've combined and done a lot of different things. So I'll turn it over to Mylan.
Thank you, Stephen. Honorable Mayor, honorable council members, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to be able to come and just kind of give you a little bit of a boots on the ground commentary as to what goes on at the airport, what we do as airport operators, and some of the other activities at the airport. First off, you know, the airport, as you know, is highly regulated. There's two entities that regulate the airport. There's the Federal Aviation Administration, and there's the Transportation Security Administration, because we do have the commercial airline module there. So we have to follow all these rules and regulations, and we have manuals for FAA and TSA that we have to comply with. And we get inspected on those areas as well, say spot inspections and then annual inspections. So we're always have to make sure that our books are in order and our airports in order and in compliance with these rules and regulations. First off, let's just kind of look at what the airport provides. Okay, we got accommodations for commercial air passengers. Now I know the woes that we've had recently, and we're working through those between all the communities in our county. But some of the accommodations that we have for the airport is we got a beautiful terminal there. We've all seen it. It's very comfortable for passengers, visitors coming through. It's got a cafe there now and a lot of amenities. And we also have free parking there. A lot of the calls that we get at the airport is people calling to ask if we charge for parking. And what they're doing is they're weighing, you know, their ticket and the expense of leaving from Riverton as opposed to going somewhere else because they're going to have to pay for parking. So they call us and ask us that simple question, and I think it's a benefit at our airport to attract air travelers. We have fixed base operator. The fixed base operator is basically they're there to provide services. Fuel services to commercial airlines. When commercial airlines come in, they call for fuel. They go over with their fuel trucks, fill up the commercial aircraft, and they're also they fuel transit air travel. When people, private aircraft, are traveling across the country, they will see where they're going to need fuel, and they plan out in their flight plans where they would stop and get fuel. And so basically a gas station for airplanes. And with some of the other things that we have, the fixed base officers is also a mechanic. So if they have some mechanical problems, they can pull in there and get repairs. Plus, general aviation people who just fly, hobby flying, they have to have annual checkups on their aircraft to make sure they're safe for flying, and he conducts those as well. And also, you know, the restaurant becomes very valuable too, because when we see quite a bit air travelers that come in, land for fuel, get out, they use the restroom, go down to the restaurant, and are able to use those services before they get back on their travel across the country. The FBO also has what is known as an APU. It's an auxiliary power unit. It's like a big battery charger for large aircraft, especially in the winter. They need extra power to turn those turbines to get them started back up again. So they provide those services to the general aviation. The commercial airlines has their own on the commercial tarmac. The FBO also provides rental car service. Not a lot of people know that, but you get charter flights that come into town. People need to have a way to transport themselves, so they have a small rental service there that they can use to get to their business meetings or their inspections, whatever they're in town for to do. We have an air ambulance unit there. Classic Lifeguard is stationed there on site. They're 24/7. They live there. And then they trade out shifts every week. Because we have a deficit of surgeons in trauma care. So our hospitals here in Riverton and Lander, because we have this deficit of surgeons, we have to stabilize them at our hospital and then use air ambulance to get them to places where they can take care of that medical condition, whether it be a cardiac event or a trauma due to a car accident or an industrial accident. They don't do that here, and so it becomes a very valuable asset that we have these services available to us. The Airport Cafe, they're up and running now and seem to be doing well. And we lease these spaces. The fixed base operator, they actually pay a lease. The Airport Cafe pays a lease to the city. Hertz Rental Car is there at the terminal. They pay for lease. Avis Rental Cars at the terminal. They pay us a lease. And of course the TSA, when they screen our passengers' baggage and before they board an aircraft, they're screened, and they pay a lease also at our facilities. We have runways and taxiways, full lighting systems, aviation instrumentation systems. We got the instrument landing system, the automated weather station system out there, and the VOR, which is a very high omnidirectional frequency that aircraft uses. Just imagine a big compass, electronic compass that aircraft fly over, and they can situate themselves, and you use that to tell where they're at in conjunction to runways. All this high-tech instrumentation is maintained by the FAA. They have technicians out of Casper come and recalibrate that equipment. So fortunately, we don't have to mess with anything like that. It's a little out of our league as airport operations. Who uses the airport? Well, we have passenger air carrier, Great Lakes, and I got to say that just last week, we all know that we've had a lot of cancellations, a lot of delayed flights, but last week they have had probably the best week they've had since last October, November. They are improving. They have a bunch of new pilots that have their hours of flight time now, and we are sharing aircraft with Whirlin, and that seems to be increasing reliability to our passengers flying through our terminal. We have a lot of charter flights that come in. These charter flights will pick up people, bring in a jet, and they get on the aircraft, they leave, they come in, they get off, they do their business here in the communities, and we're seeing an increase of that as well. We have corporate jets that are constantly coming in and out of Riverton Airport. There's, just to name a few, Ancana, Devon, ConocoPhillips, Kroger Foods, Safeways, Maverick Stores, First Interstate Bank, Wells Fargo. They're coming in constantly and landing and dropping off people, and they're going to take care of some of the business that they have in the community, and then they will fly out. Air ambulances. Of course, I mentioned Classic Lifeguard. They have a helicopter and a fixed-wing King Air right there on site in their hangar that they bring out depending on the need and the weather conditions to get these patients to the critical care that they need. We also have other flights besides them that come in that are medically related. We'll have Children's Hospital out of Denver comes in. We have jets from Billings Cardiac Center flies in and picks up patients, and Salt Lake Burn Center come in and pick up patients as well. And sometimes we're seeing up to 6 life flights a day coming in and picking up patients and heading. That's just what we see. We don't know, because we're not there in the middle of the night, what kind of air traffic we're receiving up there for those life flights as well. And that brings us into the winter. You know, the life flights now, because we have them coming in so frequently, is our priority number one when it comes to plowing. I can remember when just this last winter, we have to start plowing after a ½ inch of snow hits the ground, and the police officers in town, they will notify dispatch that they are starting to get accumulation, and they call the on-call airport operator out to start plowing up there. I got called about 3 in the morning this last winter where a child was in need of being flown to Children's Hospital in Denver. And I go up to the airport, and I get a call at the airport fire station there, because we have to put out a note. Anytime we go out on the runways, we have to notify other air traffic that there's equipment on the runways that we're going to be doing snow removal. While I was there, a nurse from Riverton Memorial called and wanted to make sure that we were clearing these runways. I assured her that I was on my way out. And as I'm plowing, we have radios in the snow plow equipment that we can communicate with the incoming aircraft as well. And I remember being out there plowing and knowing that this child is in need of critical care to get to Denver's Children's Medical Center, and just a good feeling, you know, knowing. I can remember being a police detective being called out at 3 in the morning to a crime against a child, and that's reactive. You know, you're putting together a criminal case, and at this point, you know, I'm actually doing something where a child is going to be reactive for it. You know, we're gonna open up a runway so they can get the critical care that they need, and you know, it's not as glamorous as investigating a criminal case, but it's every bit as important. We have fly-in doctors. We have people that use other surgeons around the state and the areas. They may have back surgery, knee surgery, any kind of orthopedic care. These doctors will have doctors' offices here in town, and they fly in Beechcraft King Airs to come and do follow-up appointments to their patients that live here, so they don't have to travel that distance. So it's very accommodating for them to be able to do that and land at our airport. As you probably know, right now this time of year we have a lot of the agricultural pest control airplanes flying in and out, usually in the morning before the winds come up. We have Sky Aviation and Wind River Ag. They are leasing space this summer. They have a 1-year lease with a 4-year annual renewable. They're also purchasing water for their pesticide solutions from us, and they'll be here probably until midsummer anyway, and then they'll do another set of spraying. BLM, Bureau of Land Management, is in the process of leasing space at the airport to station 2 wildfire air attack slurry bombers. They'll be also purchasing water, filling up there, and they'll be on site to put out these spot fires for these wildfires so that they have a handle on that. It doesn't get out of control. The cafe is being run by Fulmers now, and they've been drawing pretty decent crowds at the airport. And the rental car businesses, you know, not just the flying public that are coming in to Riverton are using the rental cars. We have a lot of businesses, banks, accounting firms, that rather than have a car in the business, they will rent a car to get one of their employees to training or a business meeting, as opposed to keeping the transportation on the books. As you can see, there's more going on at the airport than just Aunt Jenny trying to get to her niece's wedding in Pittsburgh. Just take these cargo flights, for instance. We have 2 cargo flights a day that come in, UPS, one in the morning, one in the evening, and UPS truck shows up, loads up the cargo, puts other cargo on the airplane. They just make an exchange there, and that's a hidden asset to our community right there. For example, hypothetically, say you in the middle of tax season in an accounting firm, very busy at that time of year, they have one of their servers crash. Okay, they bring in their computer technician, and he's got to change a hard drive out, and boy, they're wringing their hands, because when a computer system goes down, everybody knows that you're dead in the water, and at a very stressful time like this. So where does that component come in at? 2-day air coming into our airport, so we can get that organization up and running. And I can bet that the technician that's installing that hard drive and those accountants, they're not thinking anything about the value of that airport and how that component got here. All they know is that Aunt Jenny didn't make it to Pittsburgh on time. So, the airport, with all that we see going on, it really does act as a lubricant for positive economical benefit to our county. We see that, and that's probably what some people don't see that we see every day, the life that takes place up there. So what do airport operators do? What do we do up there? Well, we do 3 modules as airport operators. One is a police service, a fire service, and operations. And how the police service came about was TSA required a law enforcement presence in the terminal when they are screening passengers and their bags. We all know that September 11, 2001, it changed everything about aviation travel as we knew it. It gave birth to Homeland Security. A division of Homeland Security is the Transportation Safety Administration. And if you remember, after 9/11, they needed time to put these TSA together and hire this mass quantity of people and train them to take over these airports to get reliable screening. So the federal government activated National Guard units. You remember that when we had National Guard soldiers in the terminal with firearms doing security. Well, TSA, they also, when they rolled out and they brought their screeners to the airports, they required a law enforcement presence, armed presence there in the airport. And what they did allow at that time was security. And we were fortunate enough to be able to contract to a private security firm that was hiring retired game wardens and former police officers, and they were able to do that for many years. In 2007, however, TSA said that unless security officers have detaining authority, that means that they are legally capable to detain somebody until law enforcement gets there. They can't use them anymore. In some states, there are certified security officers, and their states recognize that once they get certified, they can detain people that commit misdemeanors. Most felonies you can anyway, but misdemeanor offenses, because they're certified and they have that capability. And Wyoming doesn't recognize that, so that kind of put us in a pickle. We had to now start using law enforcement officers because we were the only ones that had authority to detain individuals in the terminal to meet that requirement. So at the time I was a captain, and I was in charge of scheduling off-duty police officers to get paid time and a half overtime to handle these flights. We were also having a lot of manpower shortages during that time, and it was getting very cumbersome trying to meet the need of the airport. We were using on-duty police officers to go up there when they could. We were using plainclothes detectives. I was going up there. Captain Stone was going up there. I think the chief of police even ended up going up there several times. And so it was starting to really become a problem for us to meet that obligation. So I met with Bill Urbakite, and I told him of the crisis that we were in, and we kind of troubleshooted it a little bit, and I recommended to him, I said, well, you know, we have fire personnel up there. I said, why don't we combine, you know, fire and police together? I said, you know, because you're duplicating your efforts there somewhat. And this is where we got into some cost-effective measures for the airport. I was eligible to retire from the police department, and Bill Urbakite needed a security coordinator to manage all the TSA requirements, and so he offered me a position at the airport, which I accepted. And my job was to start a law enforcement program there. We had a couple younger firemen and operations personnel who we ran through the testing procedure of the police department, the interview process, the background checks, and we sent them to the law enforcement academy. I was already on site handling a lot of those flights, and once they got back and we were up and running, we had 3 law enforcement officers that were reserve officers with the city of Riverton. And so that gives us the power and the commission. We're active police officers. Nothing changes except for the amount of training hours that we have to have per year as opposed to full-duty police officers. In the first year that we were really able to stay up and running, we had an early morning flight. Remember that 6:30 flight that left? I put a fireman there. So now the fireman and the police officer is the same person. You're not duplicating. We're not spending that overtime money to an off-duty police officer. We're keeping it at the airport at that point. So your fireman and your police officer is the same guy. So we're getting reimbursed TSA money to basically pay for our firemen as well. In that first year in 2010, we did about 700 hours of those duplicated flights. And that's because on the weekends and holidays in that early morning flight, it's one guy operating that post. And that savings of those 700 hours, I think we saved about $14,000 alone right there that stayed in the airport. The overall year with us screening those flights and not having to use officers from downtown, I think we recouped about $40,000. So it was a cost-effective measure, and we're still in practice with that today. And that moves us into fire protection. We are required by FAA Part 139, anytime a commercial air carrier is bringing in passengers, you have to have a fireman on site, or if they're taking out passengers. It's required. There's no way around it. We have a fire truck there that is capable of being ran by one man. It's got a directional stick, and you can adjust it to a big cannon on the roof or a turret nozzle that shoots lower in case you have to hit a landing gear. And then you hit your foam mix, and then it puts a big sticky white foam and smothers and attacks that fire. So one man is able to do it. It's 1,500 gallons in there, and we're able to occupy that with one guy. Fortunately, we've only had to use it a couple times, and that's a good thing. For an actual, we've had a lot of standbys with it, you know, where they called in and said, hey, we got a problem, we don't know what's going to happen. So that's when we call all hands on decks, fire department and ambulances and everything else. We also, under this fireman aspect, we are required by the Part 139 to be medical emergency responders. So we have to go through a medical training course, and we have to keep up on those hours as well. Every 2 years we have to send in a recertification, so we have to, these blocks on a form that we have to fill in our training, and we are able to do that. We have an employee who was EMT, and he's able to train us in that, so we're not really having to seek outside accommodations to keep those certification hours. The operations aspect, we do airfield maintenance. We maintain all the lighting systems and runway lights, taxiway lights, illuminated signs. Of course, we change all light bulbs and the breakaway sticks. Everything out on the airfield is frangible. So if something hits it, it breaks away, so it's not impacting something real hard. And occasionally those weaken and come apart, and we have to replace those frangible connectors. We also take care of the PAPIs, and those are precision approach path indicators. There are big light bulbs out there that are domed, and they burn real hot, and they're designed for, especially at night when an aircraft is coming in, and say you have poor visual conditions, the light is red, and as they decrease and get closer and closer to the runway, it starts to turn green, so they know they're about ready to hit the asphalt. So we have to make sure that those are all up and running all the time. And with the winds, they have mercury switches in them, so when the wind starts blowing them and knocking them around, those mercury switches turn them off. And then we have to go out, re-level them so that they're accurate. We've got special levels that we put on them, and then fire them back up and get them back into operational. We do runway checks in the mornings and in the evenings. We check the lighting, make sure all the light bulbs are working and burning properly at their intensity. You can actually, the remote control with the mic of the radio system, you click them up and you can burn them up high and bring them down low. So we make sure that those functions are operating effectively. We also are checking for FOD, that's foreign object debris on the runways. We do these runway checks to make sure, and we find rabbits that have been hit by an aircraft out there occasionally, but anything that can get sucked up into a motor or hit by a prop, we got to make sure that those are clear at all times. We do rut abatement when we're snow plowing in the winter. We put big windrows up on each side, and when that melts, it starts to erode some of the dirt next to the runway asphalt. And FAA requires that doesn't have a drop of 3 inches. So if we get that erosion, we have to bring in dirt and we fill them up and we make it so it's designed so that if an aircraft has to leave the runway, it doesn't have a big drop. It can make a smooth transition so they don't collapse their landing gear. So we're always constantly checking those conditions. Winter snow removal, we have at this point 2 snow plows, 1 large auger, and 2 small augers. Before we had 2 snow plows and a big auger, but the 1 snow plow we had to remove that blade and put that big huge snow auger on there. It took 3 guys and 2 hours to do it because those windrows that are up there, we have to shave those down to 3 inches as well. So, and we have to do this in a time frame. So it's a lot of work when you're getting heavy snowstorms. And this year we had a lot of snow and we were pretty busy. So with this new snow plow that we just got, we can keep those blades on it and that snow plow that has a power takeoff that turns that big auger. And this thing would chew up a Volkswagen if it hit it. And it's heavy. And so we can keep that permanently attached now. We can clear the runways and take down those windrows in a timely manner. We also have the smaller augers that we can clean up the commercial ramp and the general aviation ramp. The general aviation ramp, before the live flights were so prevalent, we didn't really have to worry so much about that. Now they become a high priority so that we can get those aircraft ambulance in and out of there. Summer comes around. Well, let me talk a little bit about more on the plowing and whatnot. There's a lot of asphalt out there. The main runway, 1028, it's got 8,203 feet, and it's 150 feet wide. So that's a lot of asphalt. The crosswind runway, 119, is 4,800 feet long and 75 foot wide. Now, with each one of these runways, you have a taxiway on the side that it corresponds. So, as you can see, there is a lot of range to cover on plowing. The commercial ramp, once again, we clear that off and take down the windrows. General aviation ramp, we clear that off and take down the windrows. We also do braking action. Braking action tests the friction of the asphalt. once we remove the snow, and if you get a real cold one, well, you know that becomes slicker. So we have to report braking actions. So and what this is a little meter, friction meter that we put in a vehicle with us, and we run down the runway and we pick certain spots in the runway and we slam on the brakes. And the friction meter tests the reaction and that you have for the friction and it spits out a tape when you're done. When you're done, you hit enter, and it's like a cash register receipt comes out, and it tells you a series of numbers on there. And those series of numbers correspond to 4 categories, either good, fair, poor, or nil. And we report these in the NOTAMs. We report those out. We give them to the FBO, and we give them to the commercial airlines so that they can report these as well to their pilots, because they're always calling before they even leave Denver. They're asking what is their braking action so that they know it's safe to come and they can land on our runways. Good and fair, usually they're capable of coming in. Poor, it's a judgment call. Nil, that means don't even try it. You know, you're asking for trouble. So we report this to and if it's nil or poor, we will report that in a NOTAM so that anybody coming to Riverton Airport can check that before they decide to try and land there. We come to summer months. I remember all those windrows that we're putting up. Well, we have safety areas that we have to maintain and mow. They can't be more than 6 inches tall. We have to mow them down because that's a fire hazard. If an aircraft rolls off and sparks fly, then anything over 6 inches can cause larger flame. So we have to mow 175 acres of vegetation. And in the springtime, after we threw all that snow from the windrows out there, you can imagine, you know, how the weeds and the grass will grow. So we no sooner get one done with one end, and we're starting back over again to mow. So we're constantly mowing. And some of the equipment that we have there, we have a 15-foot pole behind mower deck that's hooked onto a PTO on a John Deere tractor, and it has hydraulic lifts so that you can lift up the blades on each side, so we can go around the runway lights and get in between there, and then we drop it back down and we do the large mass areas. We have a riding tractor that has a 6-foot deck with 4 blades on it, and that's all open, and we ride around. That's designed for more precision cutting around the runway lights, the signs, the taxiway lights, and so we can get in there with that. And it's kind of you come out looking like Chewbacca after, you know, it's a lot of grass sticking to you. And when the wind blows like it does up there, oh, you know, we also look like German tankers. You know, we got goggles on and masks on, and but it's all fun. And some of the clothing, what we do wear, being we're first responders to the terminal in a law enforcement capacity, we do everything that we wear indicates us as law enforcement. In case we have to respond to the terminal, some sort of a disturbance, you know, we may not look pretty, but we'll be marked, and we do carry firearms in case there's an active gunman, whatever the emergency may be. We mark ourselves so that they know that you're law enforcement and not the custodian showing up. In case they decide that they don't like you and they want to take a swing at you, well, then they don't have any excuse to say, I didn't know he was a police officer. And that's the way we schedule the law enforcement too. We'll put the first guy out on the morning shift, and he will do the terminal duty, do the police services, and then he won't work any more terminal police for the rest of the day, so he's able to get dirty. And then we'll assign another guy that works the next several flights, and he can stay as clean as he can anyway. And then the rest of us can go out and do the dirty work. We have 8 miles of perimeter fencing around the airport. It's 8-foot tall fence, and that's primarily, you know, to keep people out. They all got signage on them that says restricted area, you know, keep out. But one of the big benefits of that 8-foot tall fence is game. You know, we can't have deer out there, we can't have antelope out there, and they hang around the edge of it too. Believe it, they're always looking through that fence wanting in. But we patrol that area because we have to. when we patrol, we have gates out there that do have locks, so we will patrol that once a day all the way around in the perimeter. We'll make sure the locks and everything are sound. Nobody's tried to breach anything. We're also looking for animals that have tried to dig up and crawl under. Coyotes, they'll dig holes, they'll crawl under there. This winter I was doing a runway check, nighttime conditions. 4 dogs was out there. Had to chase them. We got an airplane coming in. Had to chase them off there, and I found the hole that they got in. And then so what we do is we put rebar down there, and we bring in a bucket of dirt with the front end loader, and we dump it on there and keep those animals intrusions out of there. Also, the airport is very windy, and it runs, the highway parallels it, and you would not believe the trash that gets blown in there. And it works right through the mesh of the game fence, and it's hanging on the sagebrush. And so we go out, and we're summertime, we're really watching for snakes because we do have them up there. And we'll pick up that trash so it doesn't blow out into the airfield, because the last thing we need is a Walmart trash bag to get sucked into a jet engine that costs $60 million. So we'll make sure that those areas are cleaned up. We do quarterly fill farm inspections. This is another requirement of the FAA in accordance to the NFPA standards. We've got fuel farms out there that Classic Lifeguard, they have Jet A tanks out there, and the FBO has an avgas and a Jet A tank. So every quarter we have to get a checkoff list, and we go and we spec those tanks and the fuel trucks. We're looking for any leaks, making sure they're grounded properly, making sure the hazmat signage is on them, making sure that the emergency cutoff switches are functioning properly, and the fire extinguishers. I never could figure that one out. Who's going to run up to a blazing, burning tank with a 20-pound fire extinguisher? But we have to check that off and make sure that it's up to date. And then we go over, we want to make sure that the hoses aren't cracked, make sure that the grounding cables work properly, and everything is painted so that you're not getting corrosion attacking your pipes. We move over to the fueling trucks, and we inspect those make sure that the gasket hatches are sealing properly, the emergency cutoffs are working, the dead man controls are working properly, so it's not spraying fuel all over the place if they drop it. The hoses are looking good, and the exhaust system doesn't have any leaks, and we check the tires to make sure that there's no cord showing, because if they're driving on the asphalt blowing up sparks, that's not a very good thing. And make sure that there's no signs of any cigarette butts in the area. That's a serious violation as well. So we do those quarterly fill farm inspections. We do fingerprinting for background checks. Anybody who is on the secure side of the fence has to be background checked. And what we do is, FBO may get a new employee that's fueling aircraft. We got to make sure that person is clear, so we'll do a fingerprint check. It goes to the Transportation Clearinghouse. We submit those, and they send us back a rap sheet, basically. And if they have anything that would disqualify them from being back on the secure area, we'll have to address that. Also, when we have these big constructions, things that we're getting ready to, all those people out there have to be fingerprinted, and those are $35 a pop, but we make the contractors pay for those background checks. So the last one we did in 09, we had about 30 people lined up. We got the police department fingerprint table, and we fingerprinted them all, sent them all in, and that's a requirement that we have to do. And we'll be doing it again, it looks like, next year when these crews come in. When we have a short visit, say there's an electronic problem out there on one of the runway signs or lights that is beyond our capability, and we have to bring in an electrician, we don't have to fingerprint that guy, because we can stay with them throughout the duration and escort them. So we do that. We do some escorting for short visits, so we don't have to worry about doing all the fingerprinting and the background checks. We Airport emergency drills are a requirement of both the FAA and the TSA. We're required every year to do a tabletop exercise. That's when we create a scenario, we bring in all of the stakeholders, fire department, police department, sheriff, medical personnel, EMTs, and we'll do a scenario. We have to sit down, we have to document what the scenario is, how we're going to troubleshoot the incident, and then keep a report. And then they'll come and they'll inspect that on one of their annual visits. And so that's a requirement. And also the TSA requires us to do a live drill every 3 years. Last one that we had that we actually did a live drill was in '09, and those are very expensive. You're asking the fire department to give up their Saturday off, police department, ambulance personnel, but there is a way around that. We have found that in lieu of a live drill, if you have an actual event, emergency event, that takes the place of the live drill. So, I don't want to wish anything bad on anybody, but we've been fortunate enough to have some actual live things. Had a couple airplane crashes, and a couple emergencies where the commercial airline has come in going, hey, we don't know if our reverse thrusters are going to slow us down enough or not, so we're calling all hands on deck just to stand by. And we can document that because we have the police computer system where we do reports. So we document everything that happened, who was involved, and then that buys us, another 3 years. So we haven't had to do one of those, and I don't think, like I said, I don't want to wish anything bad on anybody, but I think we're good for a while. I just mention this. We do those tabletop exercises, and we have crash scenarios and whatnot, and we talk. Fire department's going to do this. EMTs are going to do this. Everybody's got their little thing, and they respond and they take care of the problem and get people medical attention. One thing that we never did really discuss that we found out in real life, that what do you do with this wreckage on your runway when all that's done? And so we're sitting there scratching our head. There's no wise old man. There's just us. And so we thought, so what we did is we got Bornhoff Construction to bring their crane out there. We put some webbing underneath the wings. We lifted it up, slid a trailer underneath it, set it down, and off we go. So those are things that you just kind of forget. That real incidents is, nothing works better than a real incident. You can beat up a scenario all you want, but a real incident, you know exactly what needs to be done. And so we've had to use that crane a couple times out there already. We also have aircraft that comes in, private aviation, and we'll get a disabled aircraft out on the runway, blow tire or something, and last thing, these aircrafts are expensive, and they don't want a couple of us going out there messing around with their aircraft, but we can't leave it out there. So we've built dollies that we can lift up their aircraft with these wheels and hook up to a bumper of a truck and pull them off, So experience is the best training you can have, real events. So we've got equipment that we've made there at the shop to help take care of stranded aircraft. We also had a Great Lakes flight, it was a Brasilia, had about 25 people on it. They get out, clear out the 2-8, and their steering fails. You got these people clear out there, a mile out there, elderly folks, and how are we going to get them all back? We don't want to put them in the back of a pickup truck. So we get a hold of Wind River Transportation Authority, and we have a bus come out there, and we load them all on a bus, took a couple trips, but we got them all. And once that aircraft, the weight was taken off, then it moved, and they were able to get some steering back, so they were able to ferry that aircraft back to we didn't have to leave it out there. They were able to ferry it back to the commercial ramp. The airport operators, they are diversified, and I think that we're cost effective. Your bigger airports, you're going to have firemen, you're going to have police officers, you're going to have operational personnel, and those are people that you're paying to do each one of those categories. So there's no job too small. We do it all there at the airport. So that is pretty cost effective. We've actually been commended by federal security directors that we do have a model program at Riverton Regional Airport where we're able to do all that, and that's kind of nice to know. So I'd like to take this time now just to who are the airport operators? And I'd just like to mention each one of them so that you have an idea who they are and their backgrounds. Well, Paul Griffin, he's our airport division manager. He's here this evening. He supervises our staff. He makes sure that all federal compliance is being maintained. He plans and directs major improvement projects. He arranges major equipment purchases and with the federal government and the State Aeronautics Commission. So he's got a full plate. Many people know this. Paul's been at our airport for about 19 years, but prior to that, Paul was a retired military officer who flew helicopters for a living before he retired. So that's a great benefit when it comes to all this instrumentation that we have that I can't fully wrap my head around how it works, but Paul has a real working knowledge of how all that equipment works. Justin Hayes, he's been at the airport for about 17 years now. He has been on the Riverton Fire Department for about 20 years, and he was a past fire chief, so he's got a lot of experience in fire. Rob Heatley, he's been at the airport now for about 6 years. He spent about 16 years with the Fremont County Ambulance Service, so he's got a lot of experience in the EMT aspect of our job. Like I said, he's the one who trains us so we can keep our certification and our medical responders up to date. And he also has over 20 years experience as a fireman, so that's a great benefit. Kevin Lee's been up there now about 2 years with us. He spent 30 years with the Riverton Police Department. And I spent 20 years with the Riverton Police Department, and I've been at the airport now for about 6 years. And it's a great job. We love it. And we just thank you all for your support that you give us each and every year. So that pretty much kind of wraps up. I know I've taken a little bit of your time this evening, but I wanted to give you just an idea of all that goes on at the airport. It's not just one increment, the most popular being a commercial airline, but there is a lot of other things that go on at the airport that need addressed, and I hope that I've been able to give you a little more insight to the value of our airport. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mylan. That was a wonderful presentation. I didn't realize there was so much going on to get Aunt Jenny to Pittsburgh. But anyway, wow. That's extensive, and it's impressive the quality of people that you have there, especially in the fire department and the police and the EMT work and whatnot. That's really reassuring. You're not pulling somebody off of the street to do those kinds of critical jobs that don't have any experience. So that's great. It's another one of the legacies, I think, of Mr. Urberkite from what he was able to put together and help with. So thank you again, Mylan. I apologize for being late this evening. I was asked by the IOF, they're having their state convention, and they needed the mayor to come and welcome them to town. So I got a spaghetti dinner and whatnot, and I apologize for being a little late. And thank you, Councilman Christensen, for filling in. If I'd have been 5 minutes later, well, you would have had it all taken care of. So
You're welcome.
Good job.
It was a learning experience.
Yeah, good job. Thank you again. Yeah. Okay.
Your Honor, Your Honor,
Yes.
can we ask
Councilman
some
Guard.
questions?
Certainly.
Mr. Vittich? Are we running 9-seat planes now?
As far as I know, Councilman, we had one.
Just one?
Yeah, we're sharing an aircraft with Whirlin. So what they will do is they will come in from Denver, drop off the Denver destinations, and then go to Whirlin, drop them off, pick up Whirlin people, come back to Riverton, pick up Riverton people, and then head to Denver.
Is that, which flight is that doing that?
They
Midday?
changed the numbers, but there's 3 a day. The morning one leaves Whirlin, and it comes to Riverton and with their passengers, picks up Riverton passengers, and I believe that departs around 8:09 a.m. And then the noon flight comes in around 11:30, I think, drops off Riverton people, goes to Whirlin, picks them up, comes back, and then they take off around noon, or 1 o'clock.
1
I'm sorry.
o'clock.
And then the last flight is straight to Riverton and back to Denver, and that's around 4 o'clock.
I see one coming in later. Is 6?
Yeah, the evening one that drops off people, it comes in around 6:15, 6:30. It drops off passengers from Denver Airport to Riverton, and then goes on to Whirlin and overnights there. And then they start the cycle all over again.
Okay. Couple other questions. You said you do all that with the first guy, and then the second guy comes on. How many shifts are you running? Are you running 3?
Well, we have, we kind of run a 10-hour shift, but we stagger the time that they're there. Being we work the weekends too, so one guy is always going to have a regular day off because we work 10-hour shifts. And then if they're working the weekend, they'll have an extra day off and a half a day to cover all the weekend stuff so that there's no overtime involved.
You're doing that with 5 guys, huh?
Well, Paul is more of a management. Mostly, he's a great benefit to us, but actual going out in the field is 4.
Super. Appreciate your efforts. That's hard work. It's a lot of stuff you do.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else have any questions?
Any other questions of the council? Okay, thank you again, Mylan. We appreciate your efforts. Okay, it's my understanding that Councilman Christensen has something.
Yes, Your Honor. I just wanted to give an update about, we had some city employees and myself, we had a meeting regarding the sanitation issue and the rollouts versus dumpsters. And just kind of heads up, somewhere in July, it looks like mid-July, we're going to have what Greg came up with. We're going to have a little outing in the parking lot here, and we're calling it Trash Talking. We're going to educate the public on that. We're going to have the rollouts. We're going to have some contests. We're going to have maybe some recycling issues there, so we can teach the community what's really going on. This way, anybody that is concerned about the rollouts, if they can meet or move them or not move them, this is a good time. So we hope to have a nice little festival out there, a little education for the general public. So everybody watch for that. Hopefully it'll be on Channel 11. It'll be in the paper. It'll be on County 10. I hope it'll be nice, but we'll firm up the date.
Okay,
Thank you.
Yeah, that's good. I just had a lady in my office this afternoon that was concerned about the rollout, so perhaps she can come and have her fears taken care of. It's my understanding that we're going to have a meeting in the council chambers this Friday. Is that correct, Mr. Weaver? And that group has indicated that this meeting will be open to the public, as I understand it. And do you know when that meeting starts?
Your Honor, I believe it's at 10, goes to 10 to 1 or 10 to 2.
Okay. Yeah, I was asked that the other night at the meeting that I was at, so. Okay, so if anyone's interested in this group that's coming, we'll encourage you to come to the meeting.
Your Honor?
Yes.
Additionally, to tag on with what Mary Ellen was saying, I did notice a 45-gallon container actually out in the lobby here at City Hall. If anybody is around and would like to come check it out and can't make it to the other event, that would be a great opportunity as well.
How long can they test drive it?
City provides the gas.
Yeah.
Drive as long as you want. Okay, is there anything else for the good of the cause? Okay. The chair would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting this evening, work session.
Your Honor, I'd move to adjourn the council meeting.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.